Hey y'all, it's Michael, and it's Vlogtember Day 5. As the recording of this video, I finally decided to start a Bookstagram account. I'll link the link down below, but I wanted to separate my personal Instagram account and the ones where I post photos of basically my niece, and another Instagram account where I'll just post pictures of like videos and like quick short thoughts of books as soon as I finish them, so that way I can have another outlet to talk more about books. So follow me there, and hopefully I'll have a few posts up as the filming of this video. The thing that I really want to experiment with Instagram video in particular is the vertical video. I think that's going to be a challenge for me, anyways, because I'm so used to filming horizontal. For the past few weeks, months, really, when you want to get down to it, all I've been doing is Friday reads. I did a video previously about the audiobooks that I've just read, but not the physical book. All I've been currently reading are my short stories, and then the read-alongs and the Man Booker videos, the Man Booker books. So I'll have videos on those coming up soon. But these are just the books that I just previously have read that I haven't had a chance to talk about like in this format. All I've been talking about them is like quick little Friday reads and then like vlog style. So we're just gonna work our way back. Okay, the first one is Confused Spice by Mathis Bailey. I'm not gonna linger on this too much because this was a read along with Dee Dee from Brown Girl Reading, and we literally talked for like an hour plus about this book and our thoughts and like the themes and what it's about. So I'll just link the live show and you can watch it. It was really fun to do. I'm hoping to do more live shows soon and read-alongs because they're actually really fun. First is The Memory Book by Laura Avery. This is part of my YA book club. This book is about Sammy, who's writing a journal because she has Niemann Park type C. It's kind of like dementia in a way. It's basically you're losing your memory essentially. This book is told in a like journal form because she's writing about experiences, so she'll have something to remember by. What's really interesting about this book also is that she's actually on the debate team. So it's really interesting seeing her thoughts about as she's trying to overcome this, and her memory being so integral in in a debate tournament. At the end, I thought this book, I wasn't like the biggest fan of it. I just gave it 2 out of 5 stars. For me anyways, I think what really killed it for me was the connection of the love story. I was just not the biggest fan of it. The characterization of Sammy, granted we are taking in everything through her journal, it felt really uneven. There were some parts that I was like, that's really weird for her to do this. It didn't feel consistent in that regard. The next one is A Horse Walks into a Bar by David Gross, translated by Jessica Cohen. I wanted to read this because it won the Man Booker International Prize. So in case you don't know, that prize, the international prize, is different from the normal Man Booker Prize. The Man Booker Prize is novels originally written in English. The international prize is books translated into English. Suffice it to say, I didn't like this book, and that's because of personal reasons. This book is about this comedian Dove who goes into that. We follow him during this one night during a stand-up routine. He is a much older person, and so a lot of his jokes are very I would say like dark comedy, like dark humor. The reason why this book didn't work for me anyways is because a lot of the jokes went over my head. And that's because I'm not too familiar with a lot of the topics that he talks about and brings up to that he makes fun, well, not make fun of, but that he puts into humor. And so for me anyways, I didn't I just didn't get it. A lot of the jokes that now some I did get and it was funny. A lot of them, literally, when I tell you it went over my head, I was like, I have no knowledge of this. Now, if you are very aware of the things that he does talk about, like the the political and the historical context that the jokes are presented at, then this might be the book for you. But for me, it just didn't work in that regards because I just didn't know a lot of the jokes. And so it went over my head and it was almost frustrating because I didn't know the references. Um, it is what it is, and so there's that. The next one is Every Day by David Levitin. I read this from my YA book club, and I thought this book was so cool. It was so cool. This is about A, who basically wakes up every single day in a different body. So A is sometimes a boy, sometimes a girl, sometimes like different races. So basically, it's constantly changing. I thought this book was so cool because first off, that concept alone is really awesome. What I also really enjoyed about this is that there are ground rules and like a line of like morality for A to follow. Really like that aspect because it really shows like characterization for an age perspective. My main thing with this story is towards the end with the priest, with the pastor, and that's because it just felt as though the the story just like really didn't know where to go, and it left a lot of questions in the end. But I still really enjoyed it, and I thought it was like a really cool concept. We had a really interesting conversation when I went for book club for this. Like a lot of topics can be brought up. It's really interesting. Like it's one of those books to talk about, and I really enjoyed it in that aspect. The next one is The Big Mama Stories by Shay Youngblood. Now, I picked this up thinking that it was like a short story collection, and it's actually not. It's more of an anthology, but we follow this main character. It's basically, it's almost autobiographical. We follow our main character who's growing up in this small town, and actually, Shay Youngblood is from my city. Like, she is where I'm living right now, and you get like while granted it's fictionalized, there's a lot of moments in this book where I was like, I know the street you're talking about. I don't know if cozy is the word. Like it feels really like intimate, I guess you could say is the proper word I'm looking for. It feels so authentic the way that and real and so down to earth. Yeah, down to earth. That's probably the word I'm looking. It feels really down to earth. And I really enjoyed it. The next one is Schoolgirl by Osamu Desai, translated by Allison Markin Powell. I wanted to read this novel because if you watch the my previous video from yesterday, I talk about this because this is the first episode title of Sugagakere as the Moon So Beautiful. And I wanted to read this book because it's more of a novella. It's like less than 100 pages. I wanted to read it because I wanted to see how it connects into the anime. And it connects to the anime. This is about a girl, and it's written in like this stream of consciousness. We're basically following her, and throughout the day, and it's just the of her going to school, talking about her family. The Sai is a man writing about this little girl. It something about this book. I don't know what it was. It's more of like one of those books that because it is written in this stream of consciousness, it feels like a little girl, like what I would perceive as a little girl anyways. The way that things are phrased and the translation is actually really nice. I think I'm gonna put a pin on this novella because I kind of want to reread it again because it's one of those stories where I was like, like after I finished it, my mind was just all over the place. So I kind of want to reread it again, but I did enjoy it the first time. The language is really strong, and I don't know if that's because of the translation or because that's like the way the Sai wrote it, but it really intrigued me because I really want to read more of his works. The next one is Briar Rose by Jane Yolen. This is part of my YA. We read this for my YA book club, along with Stardust by Neil Gaiman. This is a retelling of Sleeping Beauty, but not in the way that you would expect it, because it's also like a Holocaust story. When you start to figure out how these two things start to connect because it's like part historical fiction, part fairy tale, and I thought it connected really well and it was really interesting and intriguing. I quite enjoyed it. The next one is a graphic memoir, and that's Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi, translated Part 1 translated by Matthias Ripa, Part 2 translated by Blake Ferries, Part 3 and 4 translated by Anjali Singh. You probably already know about this. It's been talked about so much on BookTube, and it's worth it. Like, I think the hype is so real for this. What everybody says about it, I really liked it. It is drawn so cool. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I want to. But I really liked it. It's just a great graphic memoir. The next two books I read for my YA book club. The first one is Conviction by Kelly Loy Gilbert. This is one of those books where it's about sports. It's like about baseball essentially, but it's not about baseball. This is about Brandon, whose father, I'm gonna try to say this so much without like spoilers essentially, whose father, who is a Christian radio host, gets convicted for murdering a police officer. But then there's this plot line with Brandon and his brother Trey, and why Trey is like kind of shunned from the family. This book is really interesting. I thought the story was so intriguing. I was like, ooh, but because there's like a the thing with this book is there's a lot of layers to it in the sense that there's a lot going on because it's not presented like straight in a straight format. It's kind of like your wonder. It's almost like a mystery, and trying you yourself as a reader is trying to figure out what happened exactly. And once the revelation happens, it's pretty satisfying. I was like, oh, okay, and I quite liked it. Okay, the next one is personally one of my favorites. I was like, wow. Whew. And that's Dime by E.R. Frank. Now, I am gonna let you know this book is really difficult. Well, for me, anyways, was difficult to read. Not just because of like the language and stuff, but because of the subject and the way that it presents this. This is about Dime, who basically falls into child prostitution, and this book is so heartbreaking. It is really like while the book itself is really small, like it's a really quick read. It's hard to read because um, just the topic of child prostitution is so hard to read about, and you're getting it firsthand because it's in first person. We follow Dime's like life, right? And it's so fascinating, like seeing her fall for like the pimp, the big her what she calls daddy, and um like we see how she falls for him and why she would love him and the things that she would do. A really great read. It's so memorable. Now if you go to Atlanta, like Atlanta's airport, there are like so many signs about like human trafficking and like like the sex trade. Um, and it was actually like I think it was like a few years ago. There was this huge like um, sex traffic bust near Atlanta that made it like on the news. The next one is The Hate to Give by Angie Thomas. Yes, it's true. Everybody, I'm not gonna talk too much about this because everybody and their mama like has been talking about this book, and I think that the hype is real. It's really good. Um, the thing that I would fault it for is like a storytelling wise is that this book does fall within. It does trip into a couple of like um, YA contemporary. I guess you could say, not necessarily tropes, but like a lot of YA contemporary writers fall into. But that was just like a thing for me personally. But I think this book is worth all the hype. I say read it. That's it. So yeah, if you read any of those novels, let me know what you think about them. Until then, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Time to wake up, time to wake up.